Welcome back to the Poor Sports Podcast. We're back in person today. We gave the remote thing a try. It worked fine.
Yeah, well, regardless of how it works, it will be the situation at times.
It'll be our situationship for a while.
I'm sure. We talked about the main reason why, which is it's been a thing looming over this podcast that you were not aware of.
It's a big deal that most people listening probably do know, because the only people that listen know us personally. But if you
I'd like to think there's a handful of strangers out there.
If you don't know us personally, then yeah, there's some news we have to share. We also talk about a lot of sports topics today. We get to a bunch of them. LeBron and the Lakers get swept by the Nuggets, and LeBron had some news to share of his own after the game, which we'll talk about. Tom Brady he's made a career change, but still in the NFL, so we'll touch on
referee. He's becoming a referee.
Could you imagine?
The camera's off again. Motherfucker. This is
doesn't like you. Can you imagine it?
It's not going to do it. Just leave it alone. Okay, it'll be fine. It's going to be fine.
There's a basketball referee who used to be a former player for the Pacers, Haywood Workman, who you might remember because he was from the really
generic.
Yeah, Haywood Workman.
That would be like the name on like Arch Rivals that they would have for somebody. Where
well, he was definitely like a scrappy off the bench guy for the Pacers. I don't even know if he's still officiating, but I know that he's like the only guy I know of that transitioned from player in his sport to official in his sport.
Well, I was gonna say it would have been interesting if he was like 6'8", because that's a very distracting referee. But he's 6'2". That's probably
it says he's still a ref too, so good for him. But yeah, no, Tom Brady is not a referee, but he is sticking around in the NFL with a new career. So we'll talk about that. A couple weeks back, we brought up the story of Glen Kuiper, the Oakland A's broadcaster, who had some choice words after visiting a museum. And that's probably the last time he'll ever go to a museum, because he's going to be making a career change now, willingly or unwillingly. So we'll talk about that. And then we have to talk about one of our local players in Seattle that's having a career renaissance, even for his relative young
resurrection,
age.
I'd almost call it.
Yes. He's among the post-hype prospects, if you will, a term that gets thrown around a lot in baseball. But we got to talk about Jared Kelenic, so we'll touch on him a little bit. And then, of course, we play the home run game with, I would say, some surprising and shocking results today.
We say that every time, and it's never a lie. It actually is never a lie. It
never is. I mean, the last week, me getting Lou Gehrig within 3 is insane. I don't even. I could not replicate that again ever. It was like a complete fluke. But the process works. The process of deducing how many home runs somebody has. It's an algorithm that works.
It's a very slow moving algorithm.
It is. It moves slow, but it worked for you today.
Yes.
We'll see how it worked for me.
We'll see. We'll see.
So yeah, we got a lot to touch on, and you've got some shows coming up.
Yes, this Friday. Bickerson's Brewhouse in Renton, Washington, the small one.
I will be there too. So if you've ever wanted to hang out with both of us
at the same time,
this is your chance.
Well, you can hang out with Alex for the first 90 minutes and then me after that.
Yeah.
Please buy a shirt. And then June 25th it's the last show I'm headlining before we have a kid. Very likely that could change if anyone books me. But it's the last one I have on my calendar and the last one my wife has approved. Everything beyond that requires, we need a notary and whoever to. So June 25th, the new Tacoma Comedy Club location on 6th Avenue and Proctor in Tacoma. Get those tickets. I've had a bunch of people hit me up. I can only give out so many free tickets, folks. So you got to go get those tickets,
Yeah. Me though, right?
You were in. You were in. I had a guy hit me up who I almost guarantee doesn't listen to this podcast, but a guy that follows me on TikTok. He's like, my parents, I think, are gonna go. How do I go about getting tickets? And I'm like, have you never bought a ticket online before? Like,
are your parents hard up for cash?
Yeah, I mean, if maybe if we get close, I could get his parents in for free. But for now,
it's tough to give away free tickets to a 100-seat venue.
Yes.
It's one thing if you're filling an auditorium that holds thousands of people, but for a 100-seat venue, you give away. You can easily count the percentage of tickets you're giving away. It's very easy to do the math.
Is very easy.
It's very easy. If I give away one, that's 1%.
Yes, that's right. All right, and then I'm at the Casey McLean everywhere.
At AlexSSN everywhere.
Only on Twitter. Stay away from him on the other apps.
Thanks for listening.
We're back with the Poor Sports Podcast, which we will have already said, but
it's good. Everything seems to be recording. Our cameras are turned on.
Yes, for now.
We are back to a professional operation. No remote podcast this week.
Yeah.
We're in person.
It's nice to have that happen, get zero feedback, but assume people hated it.
I listened back. I didn't like it, but that's just because I noticed all the flaws in my recording equipment.
Sure.
Which is...
We can fix these problems, though. They
are fixable.
Because, by the way, folks, like, I got a kid on the verge of... Not on the verge, like... It's not like my wife's at the hospital delivering
You're
right now.
You're a few weeks away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a couple months away. Yeah. Almost. I keep wanting to say a couple months. It's like less than 2 months away from this new kid arriving.
Yeah.
We're going to have some fucking remote shows, you know?
I have a kid coming too. I've never said that here.
Do you?
The reason I want to tell people I also have a kid coming is it makes the next few weeks of shows for both you and I so much more limited, because we might both have our kids and then be like, we're never doing this again.
That is extremely possible.
So it'll be like a one season wonder, and that's all you get, and that's fine. I was explaining this to my wife the other day. I was like, if we decided next week to just stop doing this, I'd be okay.
God damn.
No, that sounds really bad. That sounds really bad.
Holy shit.
But I was like,
if my wife said that to me, I would fucking cry.
I was like, but I like doing these shows. So it's like, it's like, I like coming over here and doing this, and I'm not going to stop doing that unless we have to and other things take priority. But, it's just fun to do. It's just fun to come over here and chat for an hour or two every week.
Well, did you ever have this experience when you were like early in dating, where you just had so little going on in your life that any time a woman talked to you, you'd be like, fuck, that's the thing I'm going to care about for the next several months?
Oh, I think, most guys are like that. Unless you're just the type that just bounces around.
Yes.
That's not us.
We've already determined neither of us were or are that type.
You go into the bubble. You go into the dating bubble, whoever you're with, and there's some guys that are. I mean, there's
guys that are in and out of the transfer portal constantly.
Yeah, everybody's got those friends that are. They just fall off the face of the earth when they're dating somebody, and you just don't see them for months and months until that relationship fizzles, and then you get to spend your time together, and then they find a new one and they're gone again.
Yeah,
I tried in all my previous dating experiences not to be that bad, but. I'm sure to some people I probably was.
Well, but I even mean like when you're early in your career, when you're just insecure about anything, you're like, fuck, this is like could be the only thing. So like this will be the thing that I obsess about. And then you reach an age of maybe it's just exasperation with life, and you're like, I can only worry about so much.
Yeah.
So it's like if we do the podcast has been fun every episode.
Yeah.
But also, it's not like your and my income depend on it. And
no,
so, in fact, it could probably only function to hurt your income at this point.
Well, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy doing this. I mean, I'm kind of at the point where, like you said, I only want to do things that I actually enjoy doing, right? Yes. So, I mean, over the years, believe it or not, I've actually turned down a few podcasts.
My invitation from me included, by the way.
Because I just didn't want to do it at the time. I mean, everybody has competing priorities in their lives. And I think, anytime you're doing something you actually want to do, it's going to be worth everyone's time, know, especially something like this. If we're doing this and we both want to be here, I would hope that would make people more inclined to listen. Yeah. But I understand if people don't want to listen. Kind of it's the same reason why we want to be here. A lot of people don't want to be here. That's totally fine. Do you, man.
I do like that those folks aren't incredibly vocal also, though. Like, I don't need to know when you unsubscribe. Just fucking do it.
If you want to be apathetic, just don't let me know. Be truly apathetic.
So, I mean, we still, live show, whatever, still would like to do that. Also, by the way, we will have said this in the intro, but you're going to be at the show. Bickerson's Brewhouse.
Yeah.
It's this Friday. It came together very quickly. Your buddy Frank, who I've still yet to meet in person.
Wow, yeah. No, he's very excited. I hung out with him 1 week ago today, in fact, and he's very much looking forward to it. I'm going to be there. I think they're going to sneak me into a back entrance as a VIP. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
I don't even think they have a back
I have to go through the front and set up the sound equipment, and you come in and just fucking...
I just get to be there for the party.
Yeah.
I don't have to do any of the setup work.
Well, that made it worse. That I plugged this into power. And
I don't know what you plugged in, but
I just don't want the battery to die.
It definitely feels
shit.
like there's power going through it. From what I can
Maybe
hear.
into our bodies even. I'm going to turn it down. I don't think we can live without the power, which is really unfortunate because of that horrific noise this thing is making. Maybe if I do, hold on now. I don't. Fuck. That is unmanageable. That is a terrible noise.
No, it's pretty awful.
God damn.
Hey, you fixed it.
Well, yeah, kind of. I unplugged it from.
Taking away power will fix the noise, I guess.
Yeah, the noise seems to be power related, and is
equally bad.
worse, arguably.
Yeah.
How about here? Let's see if we plug it in here. This is a real fucking. This is, by the way, your wife's worst nightmare for a podcast. How much does your wife notice that I mention how much she hates?
She notices it so much that she said the joke is dead.
She's the one that's letting us know she unsubscribed.
Yeah. No, she still listens. So we at least have one listener. But yeah, I want to get you one of those cord management systems. You know, the little cord manager things.
We'll make it better when we move to the other room. There's a lot of cords in here.
My desk at home has just a little circle. It's a very simple desk. It's like a butcher board desk, but it's got the circle to like cable manage. And that's like that's the basics of what I need. I just need the little circle to stick everything through, and it makes me feel better about life. It's the one thing I can control.
I mean, I think that's a really crude way to describe your wife, but that's the circle to stick everything.
Oh, okay.
You get it.
Sure.
Maybe we don't need to belabor that anymore. We'll make this a little bit prettier. I would say cable management is not my strong suit. I have recently spent some time watching a man run cables at the new Tacoma Comedy Club location, and I have a new respect for cable management because there's the width of like the wide end of a baseball bat worth of like HDMI, microphone, speaker, all those cables, like all those together going through these. I mean, like they're cutting holes through beams and shit like that to manage these cables. And I'm like, I mean, look at this fucking mess. This one thing about this though is this has literally come together week by week. Like I'm slowly piecing more because we didn't have the original plan for this, which we've talked about on this podcast was to do it live. Yeah. And now we're not doing it live. And so it has necessitated making this better. Yeah. But in the process, I'm just adding new cables every fucking week with no regard for where they're going to go.
Technology. Yeah. No, I mean, cable management, like a couple weeks ago when the AC installers came to my house, it looked like Frankenstein just chopped up shit and repatched drywall. I mean, they put a cable management, like a little tube. They put it through a little tube and attached it to the wall. But it's not a little tube. Yeah. it's a giant ass tube, and the wires within it are very small. So it seems excessive. It doesn't look very pretty. People, it's a real thing. It's a skill. You could put that on your resume if you can learn how to manage cable.
We also thank you for reminding everyone that I'm unemployed. We also have like our TV has a similar affliction. Yeah. And we have the channel stuff for it. We have a mount for our TV. Our house is built weird. It was built in 1910, so it's not
back when they weren't managing cables as often.
Yeah. They were mounting fewer TVs on the wall, let's say. And and so we have that mount, but it's like, we also have like our furniture is some like combination of shit we had in college, shit we've bought as adults. Yeah. And it's like, it feels stupid to completely refurnish an entire house, but you're also like, we got this thing from like Goodwill. It was, by the way, so expensive from Goodwill still. It's like this big...
Goodwill charges a lot of money for their stuff. You don't realize.
Right. So this big, fucking enormous, heavy, like, thing, dresser, not it's like maybe a vanity would be technically, but it's like not even, it's like 300 pounds and it's got so much shit in it that I'm like, we can't, I mean, I would love, listen, a dream world. We switch to one of these like modern, like little tiny boxes or little tiny tables, and there's one thing on it and then everything else is like run through the wall.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll get there. But for now, we got a mess and we got to figure out how we're going to mount things permanently. And then also you got to worry about these children.
Yeah.
Which let's not ignore that you announced in such an emphatic way.
The way we've told, I mean, we're having our first kid in September, and the thing about having kids is that everybody else wants to make it a bigger deal than you do generally. I think that's because no one knows how to react. There's two types of reactions. People that already have kids will react in a pretty normal fashion to this news. People that don't have kids, I think they feel like they have to overreact to news about children because they don't know. They don't know what it's going to be like. And granted, I'm still in the place where I don't really know.
Yeah,
because I don't have a
they
child.
They have to prove they don't hate kids.
Exactly.
But that's not the reason why they don't have kids.
That there is a reality to how people react to news about you having a kid. And so we've just kind of very nonchalantly told people here and there. At this point, we've told pretty much everybody that needs. I mean, you've known for months at this point.
Yeah, well, I knew before it was like I was even supposed to know.
Yeah.
Because when the podcast started, or at least when the seeds of the podcast started, we actually had just gotten pregnant. And I told you before I should have told you, and you were even more of a bad boy than me because it was like, I was like, okay, this is like an obstacle we're going to have coming up. And you're like, well, I'll one-up you with an additional obstacle a couple months later.
What we'll do is we'll just transition from sports to parenting.
Yes.
And no one will ever see it coming. You can just put a parenting tag on the podcast in a couple months and we'll be the best there's ever been at giving you parenting advice.
So, well, I didn't know. I had Richland trip, which isn't even the city. It's just the city that I go to the most. It's closest to where my show was.
Yeah.
But I would like to, if you're okay with this, I know you have some privacy that you'd like to keep for your wife and all that, but like, let's talk about it now that it's out in the open. Cause that's the other thing too, we've had a couple moments on the podcast that we've acknowledged off the podcast where it was like very close to accidentally being said, and we would have edited it out. We wouldn't have just let it go through. That's the benefit of not live streaming. But there's been moments where we've talked about stuff. I've talked about parenting stuff that I think you maybe held back on weighing in on in certain ways. Or one time I actually almost just said, you're about to have a kid too, which was and then I think you said you kind of came close, and then it was before you had reached the point where it was like the maybe 20th week or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think we were never like too worried about letting people know in general. We just wanted to make sure we told all the people that really mattered before other people found out. I think, man, anytime you have news like that, like you're getting like life-changing news, you're getting married, you're getting a house, you got a new job, you're having a child, the people in your life, they feel like you feel an obligation to let people know that news, right? It's kind of a weird place to be because you're like, I don't really want to tell everybody about this. I want it to just kind of happen naturally and we can all enjoy the moment, but everyone feels like they have a right to that news. And of course, then when people find out late, they're like, I had no idea. And it's like, well, yeah, of course you didn't have any idea. No one told you.
Yeah. Well, and also I will say this, we told my mom, my parents and my in-laws first and early, because part of the thing for us was in both cases the pregnancy, we discovered it, and then there were like all these drinking holidays in between when we discovered it and when we were going to announce it, right?
That
and so
is
you're
tough.
like, so it was like, we're going to try to, can we figure out a way like to not make it a big spectacle when my wife isn't drinking? Because I mean, I will drink enough for both of us, okay? But when she's not drinking, it's going to be noticeable because we like craft beer. We like that shit.
Yeah.
And so anyways, the first kid, we told my sister, my mom, or my parents, and my in-laws for this exact purpose. And then we were going to tell other people slowly, kind of like you guys have done. But my sister told her now in-laws, then it was just her boyfriend's parents.
Yeah.
And because there was a reason. They had like a decent reason to bring it up. Like it was important to this is why we can't do this thing. It's because of this. But then that lady, my sister's mother-in-law, whatever that is to me, my aunt, like, and everybody went out to lunch or something. She's like, oh, and congratulations on your new, and my aunt's like, what are you talking about? And then she's pissed off justifiably because she found out from some lady that she barely knows that's like not related to us. And
that's honestly the biggest issue with news like this is that not only, I mean, everybody has people in their life that they can trust, friends and family, but even the people that you can trust, like 10% of them is at risk of screwing something up like that.
Yeah.
Like accidentally saying something, or sometimes, I swear to God, with information like that, there are people that sometimes have their own motives and want to they want to be the one to tell everybody.
Agents of chaos.
Kind of. They want to be like they have information. It's like in The Office when Michael Scott has a secret and he just can't help but tell everybody. He just wants to be the center of attention for 5 minutes, and that's everybody wants to do that. It's like we didn't really care who knew, but we also didn't want to put the burden on people to screw up the information.
Yeah. Well, sometimes too, it's funny because I'm pretty good at not. I mean, I told my wife about your kid, obviously, which I told you I was going to do.
Yeah.
I know. I told you I was going to do. I don't think I told anybody else, including people who it wouldn't have mattered. But like as we were talking about these live shows, I've talked to like venue owners or whatever, and they, I'm not like, well, July through September for sure are going to be fucked, and then probably for a couple months after that, because this guy you don't know his wife's having a kid. I didn't even do that, but so I'm very good at keeping secrets.
You are,
and because of that, it's funny to me when I realize that somebody's known, like my friend Josh Firestein.
Yeah, I've seen him perform many times.
Yeah, he just had a huge career thing happen, and I'm sure he's known about it for a little while. There was a time in his career, again, this kind of goes back to that thing when nothing's going on in your career, you like everything is everything, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then when the more shit happens, you're like, most stuff is nothing. And in this case, he was going down this path, and maybe he's talked to other friends of his, but I'm like, oh fuck, I'm off this secret newsletter. Like I didn't find out until it actually, like, hours before it got announced publicly.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was a little bit of like, fuck, Josh, I'm a little hurt. You didn't tell me this information. I do like having that. Yeah. I have like some deep inside comedy information that nobody would ever trace it back to me if it came out, and I'm like, oh, well, I've still managed to hold on to it,
Yeah, no, I totally get that, man. There is every single one of us has a part of us that wants to be privy to information.
Yeah.
Even if since we are a sports podcast, it happens with sports all the time. I mean, you see people on social media who want to know everything. And if you happen to know, like we were talking about last week on this show, it's like, what if I'm telling you something that's 20% of what's actually out there, right? Because, you just can't tell people everything that's going on. And so, yeah, I mean, that happens in life too with stuff like this. But no, in general, I mean, I'm 38 years old, so I'm going to be an old dad.
Yeah.
But I like being in that spot in my life because I have had a lot of friends who I've seen raise kids, and I know pretty well what not to do and what to do. See, you have a lot of examples at this point. You have a lot of people to kind of like look at and say, okay, their kids are already screwed up. And then there's these other people over here whose kids seem pretty well adjusted, and maybe we'll try to do it like that. So, I can't picture being in my 20s and having a kid. And obviously a lot of people do that.
Have you thought about this? Because this was so I was 33 when our daughter was born. I'll be 37 when
which I think is like the perfect. You're at a perfect place in life.
Sure,
around 33 to kind of
unemployed and.
I mean, no one's ever ready. They always say no one's ever ready, but I felt like at this phase in our lives we were very much ready.
Sure. So what I realized at 33 is I was like, well, when my daughter is in like middle school or high school, I'm going to be 47 when she enters high school. And I'm like, I'm going to be going to like whatever she does. Let's say she's in band.
Yeah.
And there's going to be people there who are 32, had kids at 18. But what that really means is that when she's 5 and in kindergarten, I will be 38.
Yeah.
And there will be 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds there who I don't like these people now. I can't. And at the time, when I was 33, I didn't like those people then. Now I'm going to be 5 years older and more bitter and more cynical.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to like these people more at that point.
It's interesting because like when we were growing up, there weren't a lot of old parents. It didn't seem like.
Sure.
Right. Like you would see your classmates' parents, and they all looked to be about the same age, right? But every now and then when you did see one who was older, they really stood out. I mean, I remember I had a neighbor up the street that I went to school with, and her dad looked like Santa Claus. And it's like, at first you think, oh, that must be her grandpa, and then you find out it's not her grandpa.
How old were your parents when they had you?
Right around 30.
Okay.
So
because that was my parents also, and they seemed old at that time.
That's how it seems.
Yeah.
It's all generational. I mean, now everyone has kids so much later than they did even one generation ago. But now my whole thing is like, okay, I'm going to be an old dad. There's no getting around that. I just have to like look young.
Oh, God.
I have to look.
Oh,
look
no.
like
We're going to go through an Alex transformation.
The good thing is I'm already bald, so it's not like you're going to see the hair
Sure.
gray. I might just have to get some of that just for men for the beard.
Just for men.
Just keep it
You should
dark.
get one of those things I always see the shorts of them where they like spray paint the beard on. You got to get that where it's like a full perfect lines of full just straight jet black beard.
Oh, it's too much, man.
Yeah, no, you got to look like a video game character.
I
or
would
a Lego.
I would probably do the just for men touch of gray. Just keep it salt and peppery.
Sure.
Once it goes totally gray.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, I started thinking about those numbers too. I was like, well, I'm 38 now, so when this kid's graduating high school, I'm going to be 56. I mean, Jesus.
When you also think about it, you're like, how the fuck do people who are in their early 20s or late teens afford to have a kid? Because it's so fucking expensive at every turn.
It is, yeah. It's really expensive, especially around here where the cost of living is just generally pretty high to begin with. And like, even aside from the financial aspect of it, if you think about what kind of idiot you were at that point in your life, you're like, how could I have possibly, like, I look back on myself 10, 15 years ago now, and I'm like, if you would have made me responsible for another person during that time, and I'm pretty responsible, compared to a lot of people. But if I had been in charge of somebody else at that point in time, it would have gone poorly for all of us. It would have gone bad for me. I would have been a worse version of myself, and it probably would have gone bad for the kid too.
Yeah, you any savings you make because you had the kid earlier and things cost less, you lose in legal fees and bail money later when you when I would have fucked that kid up if I had been 18.
I mean, best case scenario, those people I know who got married in their early 20s and had kids, they're paying for their midlife crises now.
Yes.
Worst case scenario, much worse. It gets a lot darker than that. But a lot of them have already gotten divorced. More likely, they're just paying for the midlife crises.
You'll be paying for an end of life crisis when the kid
I will
comes.
be paying for my own coffin. But.
Yes. Yeah. So that's like, because I'm 36, you're 38.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'll be 37. Are you guys done?
Done having kids? No. Well, we might have. My wife's a lot younger than me. She just turned 31 this year.
Attaboy.
So I mean, we could easily keep this train rolling if we wanted to. But that just puts a lot of pressure on me to like not kill myself.
Yes.
not actively kill myself. I'm saying like, I gotta stay in shape. I gotta
No, I know that's fucked up, man.
There's a longevity aspect that I've never
eating lettuce.
Well, you never think about it when it's just you or whatever. You're like, if I live, I live. If I don't, if I make it to a hard fast 50, great.
Yeah,
the streets got me.
Yeah,
just like I thought they would. But then when you have a kid or you're about to have a kid, you're like, well, boy, I really don't want to be decrepit when they are in the prime of their lives. I want to make sure that I can take care of them.
Well, and I'm sure you will have this experience also, but I think of this stuff. It's crazy how much darker your fears get when you're like, you worry about being poor when you don't have kids. Yeah. I'm like, wait, I don't get to see this kid like become a grandparent. You know what I mean? Like, that's fucked up. I should get to see the whole thing. I'm responsible for this.
Yeah.
And I have to, at some point I'm checking out, and I want to see as much of her developing and becoming a human being as possible. That's the...
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've already thought about this. I'm like, if I'm lucky, I will be able to watch my child become a parent. I'll be able to make it to being a grandparent. But even then, I'll be like at the upper reaches. You know,
if your kid has a kid the same age as you, you'd
tough.
be 76 when you become a grandparent for the first time.
Yeah, I wouldn't be good for much at that point.
Yeah.
Going to the casino, sitting there, playing the slots.
Yeah. And I also think about stuff like, so we watched a bunch of shows. My wife has these like sentimental attachments to shows, and she likes like wholesome family shows. Not wholesome in that like there's no swearing or adult, but like it's like about families that are succeeding as families, right? And Parenthood, This Is Us, these kinds of shows.
Sure.
And we watched Parenthood before we had a kid. Mm-hmm. And before we had a kid, I had never cried at a movie. I had never cried at a TV show. Like I was a heartless, soulless bastard.
Yeah.
And then we have she's pregnant, and there's this movie called About Time. Have you ever heard of that?
I've seen the movie. I've seen the movie a couple times. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, well, it will fuck you up when you watch it as a parent.
Yeah.
Maybe it, that, and then like anything where it's like a kid, a dad and their child, I'm ruined. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't even want to watch it. I'm not even though I'm more connected to it emotionally now. That's exactly why I don't want to watch it.
Yeah, I mean, you're living it. You're living it. You don't need to compound it with these shows and these movies that are meant to evoke those emotions that you already feel.
Yes.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Father's Day is coming up, so I mean, you have that to look forward to, I guess.
Yes, you have to wait a year to
I will have
qualify.
to wait a year.
You know, your eligibility doesn't start until
I know.
September.
Although I did get my wife a Mother's Day gift, very small, just something small.
Isn't life unfair?
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I just got her. It was just like a pregnancy shirt that had like a little baby on the belly.
Oh, that's cute.
But it was Baby Yoda.
No, that's cute.
It says naps and snacks. It's a good shirt.
That is a Mother's Day gift that you can only give pre-birth. You can't, if you gave it to her after, that would be quite insulting. Yes.
Yeah. So we're preparing for that sort of thing, but we're like just over 3 months away now, and we've basically done nothing. I mean, as far as home goes, like we got to build out a nursery. We already have a room dedicated to it. We're gonna have to purge a lot of stuff just to like clear out storage space.
Sure.
I got some shelves I got to put up in my garage that I haven't done yet. I mean, there's all these things that like every day you wake up and you're like, I should do that, and then you just don't.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and the good news is that when you have the kid, you'll just have a lot of energy and free time. So it'll be way easier to get that shit up after the kid.
Dude, I woke up today very exhausted. And okay, so last night I played in a couple softball leagues, and we had an 8:30 doubleheader, which is brutal because you're playing till like 11 p.m. and my body doesn't go to 11 p.m. most nights without doing activity.
Sure.
So to be running around until 11 p.m. is completely different. But I woke up and I was like, man, my body hurts. I didn't get that much sleep. I'm tired. I was like, it's going to be like this every day with the child.
Yeah.
Every day.
You don't listen, man. I've been like working full time doing comedy or working nights and then a second job or like when my wife and I started dating, we were long distance, so I would like get done with a week of work where I was also a full-time student, drive to Ellensburg. Like I have throughout my 20s, I tested how little sleep one needed to still remain a functioning member of society. And I will tell you, even me, the level of exhaustion that you face is so much, it's completely I'm sure there are like, and I'm not even joking, I'm sure there are like active duty service members who have this level of exhaustion in their past, or like maybe, people who work like long firefighting, like whatever expeditions or something like that.
Yeah.
There are people who put in doctors who work 24 on, 24 off, whatever the bullshit is. It's literally that. It's like everybody faces that like incredibly exhausting level. And then it's like you just have to figure out when to sleep, because that kid's waking up in 4 hours with the same shitty attitude again. I will say the one thing about having an infant versus there's like this weird thing. There's a blend, I think, probably around 2, which is I think where the terrible twos thing comes from, where kids have enough autonomy and not enough. They're still just full psychopaths that they're like so difficult because they can go everywhere. They have language skills, but they have no empathy for anyone else in the world.
Sure. Yeah.
When they're pretty young, one thing you can do is just like let them be, which you can't do with a 4-year-old. You know what I mean? Like I can't just let her go figure it out, kid. You know?
Yeah. My niece is 4. We actually just had her 4th birthday recently. And it's the point where you have to start teaching life lessons. Up to that point, it's kind of like, hey, whatever, man.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
Well, and before they're walking or crawling, you can really like have some sort of a playpen, as long as it's within your sight and you don't have your pets jumping and smothering these kids and you keep, things they could choke on away from them. Even if they cry a little bit, it's not like I have to get over there. They cut their arm off. Like my daughter she knocked a wine bottle off of the wall the other day somehow, and I'm like, that could have killed you. Like you're borderline suicidal right now. Like stop doing this stuff you're doing.
Yeah, it's gonna be an adventure. Everybody. I actually like hearing parenting advice from a variety of people.
Sure.
Even the bad ones.
Yeah.
Because even the bad ones even have generally good advice because. I don't know. They just do.
They've fucked up a lot of stuff.
It's experience. Yeah. It's like when you start a new job somewhere and you're getting trained. You're going to get trained by a variety of people. And over time, you realize some are idiots and some are really good at their job.
Yeah.
But all the advice they gave still helped you, right?
Sure.
That's kind of how I feel about just parenting.
Sometimes you get advice from someone and you're like, well, I'm never going to do that. That's fucking,
that seems like
thank you for letting me know that was an option I could choose against.
Terrible idea. Yeah.
Yeah, is there any other information you're willing to give about this child?
Big. It's big. Far as we've had it checked out, it's going to be a large child. Though both neither my wife nor I are particularly tall. I'm 5'10", she's about 5'6".
Sure.
But we both have the tall gene in our families.
Sure.
So I'm really hoping we both like sports, grew up playing sports. I'm never going to be the type of parent that like pushes my kid to do anything they don't want to do. But this child is going to be exposed to sports very early on because we just watch and play all the time still. So I'm hopeful that they enjoy sports, man. That would be a lot of fun. I would love to be like.
Okay, so are you intentionally using? Are we omitting sex from this? I feel like you're. Oh, is it on purpose?
No, I don't think so. I don't know. It's a they them until they decide.
Okay, all right. Jesus.
I'm just kidding.
I didn't realize what podcast I was on.
That one's not going to go over well. Oh. Keep in mind, I was putting that through the vessel of an unborn baby. Just remember that.
I will play it for that unborn baby when they are of age to be offended by it.
Just remember that. No, we're having a girl.
Okay.
So people of course, when you tell people the gender, they immediately, their first question is, well, did you want a girl or did you prefer a gender? It's like, I would feel wrong saying I preferred one gender over the other.
Sure.
That would be, and I really didn't have a preference, to be honest. I mean, I didn't care. I was just happy we could have a child, that's about it. And I know like I know some parents, especially dads, will, especially if you are a dad that grew up playing sports, really loves sports, you want to have a son because you want to raise them in the mold of yourself, right? And that's not anything I ever would have wanted to do. If my kid wants to play sports, great. I'm going to help you become a better athlete, I guess. I mean, I'm not a great athlete now, but I know how to play the games, And my dad did that for me.
Well, you might put him in contact with coaches and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Whatever,
but when I was growing up, my dad he was never like an organized sports player so much, but he loved sports.
Sure.
Played, pick up everything as a kid and loved the local teams. And like, he instilled that in me. And it's not like he wasn't, Kobe Bryant teaching a bunch of kids how to play basketball, but he would go out and throw with us every day. He'd throw the baseball with us all the time, pitch to us all the time. And that just, that made me love playing ball. And I think, as a parent, I don't know how, if your kid has an interest in anything, whatever it might be, sports, arts, whatever, I think a lot of times you can maybe feel a little lost as to how to like foster that in them. And all you have to do as a parent, because I've seen it with my own parents, is just participate in what they're doing.
Sure.
Even if you're not the best at it. I have a friend who has some young kids, and his son is like 5 years old and wanted to start playing baseball. And my friend is not a baseball player. He didn't grow up playing baseball. But he asked me for advice on like gloves, like where can I get a good glove, or like what glove is good, because I want to get a glove so I can throw with my son. And like that is all you really need to do to be a good parent. Like he doesn't know a ton about baseball, he might not be the best baseball player out there, but he's gonna help his kid become better at it or enjoy doing it just by participating.
And regardless if you were a professional baseball player or someone who never played baseball, that kid will eventually hate that you want to play catch with them. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to give you so we have a daughter. We have another daughter on the way.
Yeah.
It's an all girl. I think the name of the podcast is changing from Poor Sports to Girl Dads.
I think it should be.
We have to be a cliche from the late
Or there's going to be 3 girls. Maybe we call it girls, girls, girls.
That's pretty good. Like we'll have the Jay-Z song as our intro. So you say you would feel terrible. One of the nice things about comedy is you get to exercise the demons of when you feel terrible on stage, because I will tell you, like, what I thought I wanted was a boy. I think that they a lot of times people will say, I just want a healthy whatever, blah blah blah, and that is eventually true. And I think the reason it's true though is not altruism. People make it seem like they don't actually have a preference, and I'm not trying to just put you on blast here. I think that the reason I reached a point where I didn't care anymore was because the whole thing is so scary. Even if it goes well, the whole process is so scary that like bad news could just be looming around every corner, that I'm not going to allow this kid's sex to be bad news. You know what I mean? Like it's
I feel like if you if you get really hung up on that as a parent, like generally it has to fall on the dad, and like you must not have gone to any appointments, because at every appointment that's where it's like there has to be some level of anxiety with those appointments to just, it's like what you feel getting your test scores back from school just every time you go to the doctor, right?
I mean, it's like getting your test scores back from a fucking cancer exam every time. You're like, there could be just the worst news at every turn. Yeah. And like my daughter, first off, no boy in my family would ever have been at risk of becoming a professional athlete. That whole thing is like, that's all, there's probably genetic elements to it. My family does not possess those genes. So we were safe in that regard. I think, my daughter is, so first off, once you have the kid, it's not like I would trade my daughter for any boy I've met. Also, I will say this. We went to 2 birthday parties this weekend, and there was like pretty even mix of boys and girls at both the parties. Both had bouncy equipment of various types.
Sure.
The difference between young boys and young girls and how they, like, literally when it was just the girls in the bouncy house, they're like climbing up, taking turns, being polite to each other, going down together, holding hands. When it's the boys, they're like climbing up backwards, stepping on the skulls of infants they've like thrown over. Like they're fucking savages.
Yeah. I know exactly. I watched my niece last year at the fair get lost in a ball pit. So.
Oh yeah. They have zero empathy, and I think that, like, it's a stereotype, it's whatever. I think my daughter has gained empathy faster than boys her age. The boys her age have zero empathy. I see them at daycare. I see them at these parties. I see them. My wife is a teacher. I was a boy that age. I was a boy. The age is older than her. We lack empathy for a long time.
Yeah, no, that is true. There is kind of like a wild factor that comes along with young boys versus young girls.
Yes.
So I totally get it, man. I mean, it's interesting when you're younger, especially you think like, okay, when I finally get to the point where I'm going to be a parent, I'm going to change as a person. I will just
Sure.
naturally overnight know what to do. You kind of look at it naively like that with all sorts of milestones in your life. Like, oh, I'm going to turn 30 and then I will be an adult. You know, I'm going to turn 40 and then I will be old.
You used to do that with like, because you had these natural breaks where you'd be like, next summer I'm going to be, or next school year I'm going to be a good student, or I'm going to spend the whole summer practicing baseball or something like that.
People still do it today. Like the people that get real amped about the new year, you're like, God, what is going on in your life?
I know.
That we have to have a long social media post about how this year is going to be the best year. It's like, well, that just means every year up to this point has sucked.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, you just kind of realize, hey, man, this is just like part of life and it's going to keep moving along. And probably, you know, outside of the fact that I'll probably be AWOL for a while.
Yes.
You know, raising my child. Not much changes. And I think that's something that you learn, at least for me, I've learned from so many friends I've had that have had kids already.
Sure.
Is that you kind of think, because I think when you're young, like the first people you know that have children, they do get weird. Because they have no one else to like compare themselves against, right? They are like, you know, good for them for being the pioneers of your friend group to have kids, but they don't really know how to actually behave like adults. At this point, they're just kind of cosplaying as adults and as parents.
Which I feel like is a thing you do when you first move in with like a romantic partner anyway, is you're like I used to meet so many of these dudes. They'd be like, yeah, we just got an apartment together and I'm going home and she's making me dinner and I'm, you know, giving her my paycheck. And it's like this very like, this like 1950s, we're simulating what being in a relationship is.
That, I mean, looking back on my 20s in general, and I think this is why people our age and older kind of like look down on young adults. And when you are a young adult, you know, thinking back to your own time, just kind of disdain a lot of people who are older than you had for you, and you don't really comprehend at that point. It's because you do watch these people that age just kind of pretend to follow the adult playbook, not knowing what they're doing. I mean, everyone has their first long-term relationship that they can look at, and you probably look back on that and think like, what the hell was I doing? I didn't I thought our fancy meal was at Olive Garden. You know, we got dressed up for that. And it's like, dude, like as you get older, you kind of realize that you didn't have to do things like the way you saw them on TV, but you just don't know any better.
The seeing it on TV thing is really interesting because I do think that like obviously the like 3-month salary for your ring thing that's like straight up advertising has caused that. But like, you want to have like the movie romance thing. And the thing that you did that I think is good, that I think has been helpful for us is, my wife and I were together for like 8 years before we had a kid, almost 9 years. I think, it'll be 9 years before we had a kid. Long time. We were married for several years. So we like got to like have a good relationship and one of the things that fucks people up at that age is like, sometimes the relationship starts with, we had sex and we're pregnant.
No better reason to get married.
Yes.
No better reason to make it legally binding.
Yes.
Than by knocking someone up.
Yeah. Well, I got to have a marriage before we had a kid.
Yeah. I think what it does, it fosters like a mutual respect for one another, an actual relationship, a friendship, a partnership, basically, to be able to like bring a child into the world and do what's best for them. You know, if you and your partner are on the same page. And again, that, you know, the people, our friends that we all know that had kids much younger than the rest of us.
Yep.
Who knows if they had the ability to kind of like to build all of that beforehand. But some of the examples I know,
sure,
they didn't really have the chance to do that. And, you know, over time that didn't materialize maybe the way they had all hoped. So, yeah, it's tough, but I mean, I think that is the one benefit to being older. Now, when I'm 76 years old or whatever, becoming a first-time grandparent, I might look back on all this and be like, I wish I would have done it 10 years earlier. But I'm happy I am where I am now. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you're not going to, you know, your kid's not going to play in the same professional league as you. That was what was fucked up about growing up in Seattle is the Griffey Senior, Griffey Junior thing. You'd be like, I want that. I want to be like, I want my kid to be that.
Yeah, I remember when I was in 7th grade, we had to do a career. Like, what are we going to be when we grow up? And I had no clue because frankly, a 12-year-old should not know what they want to do.
Well, also,
when they
your
grow up.
job didn't exist at that time in the world. Like the job you have, like most of these tech jobs did not exist.
Most people, I guarantee you, if I went back and we surveyed all the people in that class that had to write that paper, I don't think any of them have the job they said they wanted. Because, yeah, you're right. Most like tech jobs were not a thing back then.
I had one girl in my class say she wanted to be an anesthesiologist, and then I looked up what an anesthesiologist was, and her reasoning was basically like it makes a lot of money, which is kind of the reason a lot of us have our job now. But I did find it kind of sad even then to be like, your thing is like, well, I want a stable career with good benefits, like, no, have a fucking dream, and then you'll fail at it like all of us do, and then take a shitty job.
I want to know what went through the teacher's mind when they read they read that kid's paper. They're like, this is a better job than what I have. Maybe I should contemplate a career change. Whereas when my teacher read mine saying I wanted to be a professional baseball player, she was kind enough to give me a C+ anyway.
Oh, that's nice.
That was nice. I was like, thank you for not completely crushing my dream. Not that it ever was going to come to fruition, but when you're 12, you got a dream, man.
Yeah.
You got a dream.
Do you want to talk about sports?
Let's talk about some sports.
I think this is a decent time.
Speaking of fathers and their kids, here's one.
So LeBron James and the Los Angeles Lakers, not just LeBron on his own against the Denver Nuggets, got swept. Obviously, anytime LeBron does anything, it creates. We have to relitigate the LeBron versus Michael Jordan conversation every year. Whatever the playoff outcome is, it has to be relitigated. I'm happy to do it if you want to. I think he's the greatest.
It's not even just Jordan. Because he's a Laker. It's
right.
LeBron, Kobe, LeBron, Jordan, and then he gets compared to his own contemporaries that he plays against too.
Well, and the interesting thing about LeBron Kobe is Kobe played his entire career in Los Angeles. Michael Jordan didn't play his entire career in Chicago, but I think we would all just like to cut off those Wizards years and forget they happened, and then make them all Bulls years. So he played like his prime throughout that.
Yeah.
So I think there's no doubt in my mind that LeBron James is the best player in the history of basketball. I do think it's also very obvious that Michael Jordan had a better career. Do you understand the distinction?
I get what you're saying.
If you put prime Michael Jordan against prime LeBron James is going to crush.
Yeah, we could have this argument every week. I don't necessarily agree or disagree with that point. My stance on LeBron is that I think revisionist history on LeBron will be very kind to him. I think in the moment, it's tough. Just like I think with Kobe in the moment, and probably with Michael, granted, we were probably still a little bit too young to really appreciate Michael's prime years. But in the moment, there's so much more scrutiny on these guys while they're playing. As soon as they're done playing, the revisionist history is so much kinder to them. Think about how great Kobe's image was just in the few years after his retirement, before his death. He was on top of the world then. That's when the whole girl dad thing starts, he becomes like...
He's our inspiration. I wouldn't have had a girl if it wasn't for him. Now I'm having two because of him.
It's a Kobe time right there. Yeah. He
By the way, I will say this. When this was fucked up, when he crashed in the helicopter, and I've probably said this on this podcast, but I was driving to the Indianapolis airport, and I had a 5-month-old daughter, and I was like, the first thing I thought of was him and his daughter being on that, and then the family being left behind, the rest of the family being left behind, and it changes your whole view on that, because you really lose. Kobe is his career is over. He got 40 years or something or 40 plus years out of his life. How tragic. I know this is a hilarious topic for us, but it's it does fuck it just fucks up your whole, not fucks up, it probably actually improves your worldview to become a parent.
Yeah, but I've been to the Indianapolis airport before. It's a pretty depressing place. It's like the whitewashed dentist office of airports. So there's a lot of better places you could have been to have to have faced that reality than the Indianapolis airport.
I actually think, to be completely honest, I think I was in an Applebee's. A literal Applebee's. It
actually gets worse.
Not a metaphorical Applebee's. An Applebee's that was like outside of the airport, like maybe 20 miles away, waiting. I was in Plainfield, Indiana. Actually.
That's how like an indie comedy movie would start.
Yes, with Kobe Bryant dying. That's
you sitting at a Indianapolis Applebee's, single tear down your cheek, and one of those really tall cold beers that they have.
Maybe 3 of those really tall cold beers, if I'm being honest. But so LeBron, so I guess this is what I'll say. I think incredible career to this point, theoretically more to go. We'll talk about that in a moment. Off the court, I can fully understand how, despite much like Michael Jordan, obviously Kobe has the one really bad mark on his record that we don't need to get into, but outside of that thing, he had like a relatively clean reputation.
Yeah.
LeBron James is like impeccable. We should love this guy on paper. We should love this guy. He's everything we love. He's this guy that played for his hometown team, married his high school sweetheart. He doesn't have legal problems. He doesn't have these like allegations of anything. And maybe they exist. Maybe it's like he'll be like Marvin Harrison, where we find out after his career that he was a complete maniac. But none of these things exist in his reputation right now. And I still understand how people are like, to me, because he came up with like seeing the media and how they dealt with Michael Jordan, and then kind of the way Kobe dealt with the media feels like it was like to a degree, a reaction to that. Like there was more media training in the early parts of his career.
Yeah.
LeBron James feels like a fucking actor.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% get what you're saying. LeBron is the first athlete to really come up through the entire social media era.
Right.
When mainstream media has completely changed, and what it means to be mainstream. I mean, I don't think any athlete has ever had more scrutiny upon them.
High school games being televised on ESPN.
Yeah, I mean, compared to Kobe and Michael, they don't even know. Like I remember watching the 30 for 30 on Michael Jordan, how he would just go on the road and just sit in his hotel room because he couldn't leave. And like when you watch the video footage of him leaving his hotel, it's chaos. It's chaos. He has to have a group of handlers with him at all times, or else who knows what would happen to this guy. And I'm sure the same goes for LeBron. If he probably can't leave his hotel room on the road either. But on top of that, Michael could always escape because there was no social media. LeBron, he doesn't really have that luxury. There's always going to be eyes on him in a way that there weren't on Michael Jordan and to some degree Kobe Bryant. So the one thing LeBron's always done really well is he's managed to like keep that image very clean without seeming disingenuous like a Russell Wilson would. Your camera was working before.
I know. I've looked at it many times.
Your camera just really does it. It somehow you get it to turn off.
So fucking
every week it just decides I'm done now. I don't want to film this man anymore.
I don't blame it. All right, we can continue. We didn't lose too much. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think for LeBron, like he's just done a pretty good job remaining authentic while also remaining like a pretty good person. I think that just means at the end of the day, like even though everybody wants to break a person like that down and find their flaws, like I think LeBron's actually a pretty good dude. I think that's more of a legacy than he'll have. Assuming that's true, that's a better legacy to have than being the best basketball player or second best or third best, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. There's
being a good person.
I think it's Isaiah Thomas, the former Washington Husky and a variety of NBA teams, including, I believe, the Cavaliers alongside
briefly.
LeBron.
He played for a lot of teams where he was just there for a short while.
Yeah.
Most notably the Celtics.
Well, and he was like on the verge of probably signing a huge contract, and then I believe it was his sister got killed in a car accident, and he had like a degenerative hip condition discovered all in the same offseason. Just such a brutal
stretch.
It
doesn't help when you're 5'9" on top of that. And, in the NBA.
By the way, a Tacoma native, and there's a place in town called the Fish House, which is, I walked in, it is in like 19th and Martin Luther King, I think.
It's across from the Azels. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's, you walk in, and there are Nation of Islam newspapers all over the place, which is an odd, if you're familiar with the Nation of Islam, is a strange experience to walk into a place and go, oh, I think these people hate me. But they fucking have the best food, but they also have Isaiah Thomas pictures all over that place. Like he is the I mean, it is cool to see a place celebrate a guy that's like, I mean, and a guy who's I met Isaiah Thomas at a Rainier's Bring Back Our Sonics event, and I was like, by the way, this was when the Kings were potentially, and I used to not say this on podcasts, but the Kings were like slated to be the Seattle Supersonics, and he was playing for the Kings, and I go, he was, by the way, I also think perhaps slightly under the influence, and I go, I was like, hey man, I hope you're playing here next year, and he's like, yeah, man, me too. I was like, oh, hell yeah. Like, what a risk to take for a nobody.
You're telling me he didn't want to go back to Sacramento? This shocking news. No, yeah, I mean, it's cool. Like, the social media era with athletes is...
Oh, I brought him up. The reason I brought him up, completely unclear. On his profile on Instagram, it says, if all I'm known for is being a great basketball player, I fucked up. And I think not that, but it's like roughly that summarized. Yeah. I don't think it says fucked up. But that's kind of what you're saying about LeBron, is like he's got, his legacy is so rich and like good, genuinely good.
It is good, yeah. No, and there's so many athletes that say those types of things where like, I want to be known as more than an athlete. And you're like, all right, cool. And then they don't do anything to be more than an athlete, right? Like they're like, we're more than just dribbling the basketball. It's like, well, you're not doing anything for the community, and you're not that entertaining online. Yeah. So it's like, what are you then? But LeBron,
and you're like, at least by all the public measures, not a great parent. Say, I think that's Isaiah Thomas is saying I should be. I'm a good parent.
Yeah, he's good. He goes to the gym that I go to frequently, and I see him there, and he'll just bring his kids with him, and they'll just shoot around like any other parent and their kids would. It's unique to see, because here's like this hometown hero just playing basketball with his kids at the gym in his hometown. But I mean, with like LeBron has done so much where he doesn't have to. And I mean, anytime you have a lot of money and you're wealthy, people will always try to break you down for that. You know? And he's actually given a lot of his money to good causes. He's done as much as he possibly can. And for as much as people love Michael Jordan, like, he wasn't known for philanthropy. He just wasn't. Yeah. Like, I'm sure he was doing things, but and there's, again, this is where you kind of have to straddle the line. There's like, I'm sure Michael Jordan did a lot of philanthropy that we'd never heard about. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have someone like Russell Wilson, who lets you know every time he does anything good. Yeah. And then somewhere in the middle is a guy like LeBron James, who's done a ton of philanthropy. A lot of it gets documented. A lot of it we probably don't even see. But even just the amount that you see that's documented is a lot more than most people.
So LeBron gets swept by the Nuggets. And we have the other unfortunate thing about being a professional athlete is, in your moment of greatest frustration, someone puts a microphone in front of your face, a camera in front of your face, and you say things, which I don't think he says. He's very good at it.
He's very measured. No, there might not be a better speaker in sports right now than LeBron James.
So basically the subject of what he's going to do going forward comes up, and we'll play the...
It's okay. I don't like to say it's a successful year because I don't play for anything besides winning championships at this point in my career, and I don't get a kick out of making a conference appearance.
Do you know what this hat is? It says UN. I don't think it's United Nations. You're a hat guy.
He's a big Kofi Annan fan. I am. I don't know that one.
He had a NATO hat on last week, actually.
There's a kind of like a streetwear brand called Undefeated, which it possibly could be, but usually they just put their logo on it, not the.
Gotcha.
I'm sure it's probably some hat that costs like $400, and that's why we have no idea what the brand is.
That I would hope he also has like a stake in it, because you see him come out, he's like,
it's a cool hat. I like the hat. I like the way
it does
looks.
look like Shoeless Joe Jackson would be wearing it a little bit. Like there's
I like a good like white or cream cap with
Sure.
like a dark brim. I
Gotcha.
think that's a really good look. You can't wear it more than like twice.
I know it'll get dirty immediately. I don't even wear white shirts anymore. I'm like, I can't. I will spill on it.
There's no reason to put yourself.
You're wearing
at
a white
risk
hat
like
right
that.
now.
I know, but I hardly ever wear this hat.
Gotcha. This was a
This
special
is
day.
like time number 3.
Announcing
so.
the child on the podcast.
Done it a lot, and it's not fun to me to not be able to be a part of getting to the finals. But we'll see what happens going forward. But I don't know. I got a lot to think about, to be honest. And just for me personally, going forward with the game of basketball, got a lot to think about. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Lebron.
so I think I might have edited around or missed the part where he's making an allusion to he might retire. And I feel like this is kind of one of those things that we're going to see athletes start to do, because we probably saw a lot of it around the time when Jordan retired, and then like Robert Smith retired, if you remember. There were guys who retired early. We're starting to see a lot of NFL players retire early.
Yeah.
But there's seeing players retire early, but then there's this uptick, it feels like, in guys talking about it when they never actually seem to actually plan on retiring.
This is this is going to be a really bad comparison, but playing softball and being 38, the same age as LeBron. Again, bad example.
Sure.
But I will say I play with a lot of older dudes that are like 50s and 60s, and I watch them play, and I'm like, man, I really hope I'm not playing at that age.
Damn.
And there'll be times. There was a time yesterday I was chasing down a ball that hit the fence, and it's a little wet out there, and I slip and I fall and I like catch myself, but it's not graceful. And at that moment, I felt so old.
Yeah.
And LeBron is also 38, playing at a sport that is designed for kids, basically.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in a moment like this where he just got swept and just watched everybody around him, including himself, suck in his own mind, you gotta feel like I don't ever want to go through this again, so it's probably time for me to walk away. And then he'll wake up a couple days from now and he'll know that he's still one of the best basketball players on earth, and he'll be back.
So you
next
think
year.
it's fully genuine? You think?
Oh,
he
I think
actually...
absolutely, yeah. Because dude, the rec sports I play on days that we get our asses kicked, I'm like, I say to myself that day, I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna. It's not worth the $90 league fee. I'll probably just quit the rest of the season and not come back. And then I always come back the next week. I always come back, even when we're getting smoked, because there's a part of you as a competitor that maybe naively believes you're always going to win. You know, it's like you saw it with Kobe at the end of his career. He was so banged up coming back from a torn Achilles, but he still stuck it out, even when to the detriment of his team, some might say. LeBron isn't hurting his team. If anything, it's remarkable to watch a guy that age still carry the load in any sport. I mean, you just don't see it that often. I guess you could compare it to like Tom Brady, but it's a different position. A quarterback has some longevity. To be, this kind of like shooting guard, power forward hybrid the way LeBron is and still perform at such a high level, it's really remarkable. So I think, for LeBron, I totally believe, I understand what he's going through to some degree. I believe him when he says he's going to consider it. I also don't take what he said, that he has a lot to think about, to mean he's going to retire.
I think there was a part where he actually, hold on, let me see if I can get the right quote, because I do think there was a quote that was a little more, that's what I'm saying. Oh no, this is more about your son or your buddy Bronny James. You really love Bronny James, who we didn't cover it, but I believe committed to
USC. Yeah, he's going to be a Pac-12 basketball player. He's going to put up 30 points on the Washington Huskies next year, most likely.
So this didn't get included. In fact, it might have come after where our video cut off, but it's ESPN followed up with him after that video. He said, when you say You got to think about stuff. What thread should we be pulling on that? And then he said, if I want to continue to play. So that's him acknowledging that he's talking about retirement. And then as in next year, yeah, you would walk away. I got to think about it. So to me, there's a part of this, and maybe this is like the actor. Like LeBron there's so many histrionic, like dramatic things about LeBron. To me, I think that even like this, and I don't hate this on its face, but like the throwing the fucking chalk up in the air. It's all like there's so much theater in what he does that I feel like he's cosplaying as Michael Jordan almost, where it's like Michael Jordan was a fucking lunatic.
Yeah, I think the difference between LeBron and Jordan and Kobe, I always put all three of them together because I think Jordan and Kobe are very similar. You know, they did the same.
Well, they all three played essentially the same position also.
Yeah, more or less. I think with
Jordan, ball handling, guard, forward, like.
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I think that just the way that the game's evolved kind of changes their positions a little bit, but the point remains. I mean, they're basically all like the best shooting guard of their era kind of thing. With LeBron, it's, you know, there's a theater aspect to it, but he also seems pretty self-aware, where Kobe and Michael kind of lacked self-awareness at times. I mean, that's why you saw Michael go drag the Wizards down with him. Yeah. That's why you saw Kobe drag the Lakers down for the last couple of years.
Oh, that's interesting.
Kind of like hamstring that franchise. They were paying him money and they couldn't like go through their rebuild that they needed to go through, right? And granted, I mean, the Lakers, they have a ton of money. They're able to rebound just by throwing money at guys like LeBron. But for those last couple of years of Kobe and for Michael, they weren't helping their team. They weren't even that good. They were shells of their former selves. LeBron is far from a shell of his former self, and he's still a good player. And I think at the back of his mind, he has that worry that he doesn't want to become like they were at the end. He wants to be
right.
And I think when your team loses a playoff series 4-0, you look around and like, even if you know deep down that you were not the reason, like maybe all your performances were good enough to win, you still lost 4-0. And I think that's, again, another area where he separates himself from Michael and Kobe is he understands his role with the team. He understands that if everybody around him isn't playing well, then that reflects on him. And I don't think Michael and Kobe ever necessarily did that as much. Now,
so I think in this moment, though, I think that he is... we've used cosplaying too many times in this episode for my comfort, but I think there's a thing that he is doing because he's been so calculated for his entire career. There's a thing that he's doing here that's like, it's like he's pretending he is having this, it's like a fully emotional decision as opposed, it almost feels like it's like calculated to even have this retirement, like hemming and hawing, you know?
For whatever reason, I buy it with LeBron. I don't know.
You're the guy.
I followed him on Twitter for a really long time, and like if Ohio State football is playing, this dude will be like live tweeting his reactions to it in like the way that any other dumbass sports fan would.
That's good. I like that.
And it's just like that's not something like most athletes would ever do.
Sure.
He's just such a he seems so genuine in the way that he carries himself. Like him tweeting about Ohio State football is probably a blemish on his record. If you actually go through all those tweets, you'd be like, man, this guy is like too reactionary, but he does it anyway.
Sure.
And I'm sure people have probably told him like, hey man, just maybe like not so much. And he's like, whatever, man, this is what makes me happy and how I'm reacting to the moment.
Yeah.
So it seems to me that because he seems more self-aware than a lot of athletes of his stature, because he has always more or less carried himself in an authentic manner, like I actually buy that he considers it. I think he'll be back because I think he really does want to play with his son.
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna like hold a franchise hostage to like make sure his son is on his team with him, but I think he just wants to be one of those guys that can say, hey, at the same time, there was a time where me and my son shared a basketball court at the highest level in the NBA. So I think he'll probably stick it out till then, and then I think he's done.
You think 1 year with Bronny?
I mean, I think that's all he needs.
Gotcha.
I mean, a lot of people forget that Ken Griffey Sr. stuck around for a second year with the Mariners, and it did not go well.
Sure.
And he ended up getting released, I believe, about halfway through that season. But you can always hang on a little too long. And I think LeBron seems like one of those guys that is very aware of not hanging around too long.
Yeah. Okay, let's so we have a couple other topics written down here. One is that Tom Brady is buying part of the Raiders. The only thing about this that's interesting to me is it's so similar to, did you ever watch the show Ballers?
I don't think so. What was Ballers?
Ballers is The Rock. And,
oh, yeah, no, I did. I know the show. I didn't watch it.
Oh, my God. It's actually very good. Like
it's about sports agents, right?
Yeah, but The Rock is like a former player. Mm-hmm. And it starts out as like he's trying to be, create like kind of a sports agency. And then it evolves into, it's like before the Raiders have decided to move to Las Vegas.
Sure.
And they do like a couple cool storylines on it where he's like in Oakland talking to a guy that's from Oakland, like a dude that's lived in Oakland his whole life, old guy that's like going to be sad when they leave. Also, he's talking to a prospective Vegas owner, gets fucked over, all these things.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting to me. It's also like Tom Brady has played for 2 franchises.
Yeah.
He has won Super Bowls in both of those stops. There were rumors all offseason that he was going to come be a Raider, and then he decided to retire.
Raiders and Niners was what everyone kept hearing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I think Josh McDaniels is still in. So anyways, Jimmy Garoppolo ends up there. Doesn't it kind of feel like this has Jordan to the Wizards potential?
It's like in Major League 2 when Roger Dorn buys the team and then activates himself when things are going poorly.
Sure.
That's Brady's dream. He probably watched Major League 2 right before he bought into the Raiders and was like, I could do this too.
Well, and I wonder what, like, if he owns part of a team, he put it in his retirement paperwork, but I wonder how that changes, like, everything.
His broadcasting career and stuff like that.
Well, but even that's true too. His broadcasting career, does he become, if he's one of the owners, he now gets to go in and go, no, you got to fucking release me from this deal. To me, I really genuinely feel like this makes it more likely that he. Also, it's interesting to me that these guys, Brady also had a golden boy image, actually, despite like having some off the field issues in not only like related to football, but he's got the wonderful Bridget Moynihan's child, and then Giselle and the divorce and all this crap that I don't actually care about all that much. But for LeBron wants to put a basketball team in Vegas, Brady wants to be part of this ownership group in Vegas, and part of it is like these guys are probably just actually smart businessmen. I think LeBron is actually a very LeBron is the best argument for not making players go to college, because he's gotten like a full occupational education alongside becoming the best basketball player ever, in my opinion.
LeBron's producing movies now. I mean, like he's followed the Jay-Z path of like kind of spreading yourself all over the place as a mogul, But what Brady's doing seems like it's becoming like the playbook for retired Hall of Fame athletes, like Jordan, like you said, buying into first the Charlotte Bobcats, then they became the Hornets. Jeter did it with the Marlins. It's like neither one of those guys had any sort of affiliation with those teams really, but they just wanted to own a team. The difference between the Marlins and the Hornets is, I'm sure those guys are making their money because sports ownership is you're just printing money basically, even with the worst teams typically. But those two franchises are nothing compared to the Raiders. The Raiders they're an iconic franchise, even though they haven't been good in the last 20 years or so. Yeah, they're still an iconic brand, and they are in Las Vegas. Brady's going to make a lot of money just being a part of this, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing that was always so frustrating about Howard Schultz talking about operating losses. Yeah. It's like, well, the team is appreciated in value by like several fold, so shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no, sports ownership it's a lucrative place to be. That's why, I mean, man, we see it here in Seattle with the Mariners all the time, and it's like, you guys always make it sound like you're hard up for cash when you don't go out and sign free agents, and the reality is you're far from that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, actual cash is like a whole different. That's like meaningless.
Yeah. When you're that rich, no one cares how much you have in your wallet.
Yeah.
What you actually have is much more than that.
Yeah. Okay. Glen Kuiper, the guy that we talked about a couple weeks ago, from Oakland A's announcer, ends up getting fired. One thing that I will say, and this is again like we have to kind of parse the legitimacy of it, and we're not the people to do it because neither of us have inside information. The Oakland A's said that their investigation uncovered stuff that was not included in like the public outcry or whatever.
Yeah.
Which is it's a very convenient blanket statement to make.
Oh, it could range from we found out he actually is a racist that meant to drop.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah,
by the way.
that meant to drop this terrible, terrible word on the broadcast, or it could be like, yeah, we found out he was showing up late from time to time. And so it's a wide-ranging statement. I would hope like if they actually uncovered that this guy is kind of racist, like just say that so like people understand, so that he's not going out and people have a different impression of him or think he got a raw deal. But obviously, they took a look at this and there was more to it than him just saying having one big mistake on air. It seems like there was more to it than that.
Well, so the implication, and again, neither of us know if it's fair. So that's the problem is give us the information. Give us the actual information.
This is one of those situations where obviously no private entity is required to give you information, but you might want to.
Yes.
This one might be helpful.
Yeah. I mean, he's not necessarily a sympathetic guy, but anyway. And then before we have our home run game, we just haven't ever talked about this guy on the podcast, I don't think, before. Jared Kelenic is having a hell of a year, and he had like a hot stretch, and he's not maintaining that, unsustainable level of production.
Yeah.
But Jared Kelenic is a guy very interesting to me because the Mariners fan base, probably every fan base, very quick to turn on prospects who are not fulfilling their potential.
Not even just prospects. It's everybody. Anyone who comes to Seattle and does not fulfill their potential, whether they're a prospect, a free agent, they could be the manager, they could be the hitting coach, it doesn't matter. No town is quicker to run people out than Seattle.
Yeah, and maybe that's not. Maybe every place is like that. I don't know that for sure.
Feels like we are a little bit more unfair, but I'm also the one like at the front of the pack, leading the charge. So I get it.
Because I remember my there's a Seattle sports analyst, we'll call him, who I used to work with, and I remember when the Marco Gonzalez Tyler O'Neill trade happened. I hated it the day it happened. And then he was like doing victory laps when Marco had one decent year. And he's like, it doesn't matter. Fucking whatever Tyler O'Neill does, the Mariners won the trade, blah, blah, blah. And now Tyler O'Neill has not turned into some world beating, but I do think he was. So was he an all-star?
No. It does not.
Not an all-star, but in 2021, 8th in the MVP voting.
Yeah.
He's 2 Gold Gloves.
He's been okay. He's been very volatile. He will have a good year and then a really, really bad year. And now he's kind of like settled into being like almost what I would consider a fourth outfielder type, which is not. I do think the Mariners actually won that. We don't need to get into that.
Oh my God. Here's
because I hated the trade too. I hated the Marco for Tyler O'Neill trade. And the reason why is because Tyler O'Neill's value at the time, as basically the Mariners' top prospect, was much higher than kind of a post-hype pitching prospect in Marco Gonzalez, who was never going to be more than like a third starter on a good team.
Sure.
Which even still, you could argue that like even if Tyler O'Neill becomes an all-star, a perennial all-star, even a third starting pitcher might be more valuable than that. So you could argue that the trade was always going to be okay. I just thought they could have got more for him, and that's what a lot of people were upset about in the moment. But
yes,
I do think the Mariners have slightly won the trade.
I think. Hold on. Let's now. You've
we've really gone off the path of what we were going to talk about.
So Tyler O'Neill to me though is a guy that's like a cautionary. That, by the way, that 2021 year, he's obviously never matched it. That's a nearly 6 wins above replacement season. I just want to see. We're doing the real time accounting, which is fun for everybody that's listening. So Marco Gonzalez has played considerably more he's been on the roster considerably more. This is actually not. I don't think this is that damning to him. 9.9 wins above replacement.
What was Tyler O'Neill's wins above replacement?
8.6.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Pretty close.
Tyler O'Neill is 27, almost 28 years old. Marco Gonzalez is 31 years old. I think Tyler O'Neill is making, I don't think he's making considerably less money. It's closer to break even than I thought. But Jared Kelenic.
It's a pretty even trade. I mean, it's one of those trades where you could kind of argue that both teams did okay. I mean, neither one is like thrilled, but they're both. I would say the Mariners are probably closer to thrilled because Marco carried the load for the pitching staff for a few years.
Fine.
And now he's a solid fifth starter.
So the Jared Kelenic trade is, you're talking like the husk of Robinson Cano. And what was it? Was that? No, that wasn't J.J. Putz. That was the one that brought
that
Jason
was like
Vargas here.
10 years
Who
apart.
Who was the reliever that went with? Was there a reliever?
Yeah, we sent Cano and we sent.
That
was. I immediately caught myself. The Mariners sent Cano and they sent Edwin Diaz. They had to.
That's right, Edwin Diaz.
They had to include Edwin Diaz to offset the giant contract that came with Cano.
Yeah, and Diaz has had like incredibly large swings in productivity from being like on the verge of being DFA'd, it seemed like, to like the highest paid reliever in all of.
He's been the best reliever in baseball at times, for sure.
But just if you could get nothing for that package, that was remarkable. To get top prospects, and I don't remember if you remember the story. The Mets actually wanted to give up more.
Jeff McNeil. Yeah, that was I remember when that trade came out, and the original package was everything as we saw it, as it ultimately ended up being. Plus, the Mets were going to give the Mariners Jeff McNeil, who has been a pretty good like second base outfielder player for a number of years for them. He would have fit in perfectly on this team. He would have solved a huge problem for them at second base. And I remember that trade rumor being out for like a few hours, and then suddenly the trade package changed. And it's almost like the Mets floated it out there to see how people would react, and they reacted so poorly to the Mets side of it that they're like, all right, we got to change something here.
My understanding is it's not like that. That's exactly what happened. I
believe it, because they're shady like that, the New York Mets. Yeah. No, McNeil would have been, because at the time he was like one of those guys that was, I think he was either at AAA or just broken into the majors, but he was kind of like an older prospect, like a 25-year-old type prospect. And it was clear he could hit, and he's shown that over the last few years.
Low ceiling, high floor, but a very good prospect.
But Kelenic was one of the top prospects in baseball, and he obviously has maintained that as he was coming up with the Mariners, and the last couple of years have not been very kind to him. And now all of a sudden he's really like turned the corner. And I don't know if you saw the piece, a few weeks back in The Athletic about his offseason transition. That was a lot has been made about that, about the hitting work that he did in the offseason with some private hitting coaches that really kind of revamped his whole swing, not just his swing, but his mindset and his approach to hitting. And that seems to have worked. I mean, sometimes all it takes is it's like with golf, as two people who golf very mediocre.
Yes.
And you and I, sometimes all it takes is watching a video or just tweaking one thing, and all of a sudden it all clicks. Yeah. And that seems to be the case with Kelenic. Something clicked in the offseason for him, and he's playing so well. To me, it always seemed ludicrous that fans wanted to give up on a guy who was 22 years old last year, trying to find his way in Major League Baseball. He's only 23 now.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the in the same way that it was insane for people to penalize LeBron for bringing bad teams, dragging bad teams to the finals. Yeah. The same way that is in the same way they're like penalizing Kelenic for being a good enough prospect that he came up earlier than most prospects would, and most of the guys who become prospects who are successful at 23, 24 in the majors got to go struggle in silence, struggle in anonymity, essentially, at a AAA ball club, and Kelenic had to do it in the majors. It's also, my home run game guy is kind of like this, by the way.
Like Kelenic?
Yeah.
interesting.
Do we want to get into the? We got first off. I think one. We got to get some production on this. I know this is me saying it to you, even though it's going to be me that's the one that does it. You're not going to start like playing. I would like to get a home run game song. So if you're out there, fuck it, me in the ass. This stupid camera. I think I know. I think I know what's wrong with it. But
you just need to tell me what to
damn
push.
it! It's the button closest to you towards the middle. Almost there. That one right there. Well, don't do it now because
I got it. I got it for future reference.
Yeah. Well, for future reference, you just turned it. It's off now. Oh. God damn it! It might be done for. Hold on, let me.
I got it.
Hold on, before the home run game. Let's.
I just can I say one more thing about Kelenic while you're doing that? I think what a lot of people don't know about Jared Kelenic is he was kind of raised as a baseball robot by his dad. His dad is a baseball coach of some repute in Wisconsin, and if you've ever heard the story of like Todd Marinovich, the former quarterback. His dad basically raised him to be like this cyborg football player, and it really messed him up in a lot of ways. He never succeeded in the NFL as a result, and off the field he had a ton of problems. I don't think it nearly as bad for Jared Kelenic, but I think the reality of his upbringing made it so he wasn't possibly prepared mentally for the rigors of Major League Baseball or professional baseball as a whole. And now that he's had a couple go-rounds with it already, I think for him, it's maybe starting to click, and he's like able to find a little bit of his own identity, not just in the confidence that comes with playing better, but just having been here a couple years now and having the same teammates, having the same manager, having some consistency that he's probably never had before at the lower levels or as he was coming up, and just becoming an adult, making friends, and all those things. I think he's such a player that thrives on confidence and mindset. You see it like in years past when he'd strike out and go into the dugout and start smashing something with his bat. It's like that kind of reaction kind of speaks to maybe his immaturity or his inability to be prepared for this, this journey through Major League Baseball. And now I think it's finally all coming together for him. It's great to see because obviously it's helping our team. And the Mariners have not been very good this year, and they would be much worse without Jared Kelenic. That's the truth.
Okay, so we've given up on the camera. I think I know the problem, but we're not going to fuck with it right now. The guy who is like him that I'd like to talk about in our home run game.
Sure.
Because Kelenic is like uber prospect, comes to Seattle, struggles, common story. We've seen this all the time. There was a time when that wasn't always the case. There was a time when some of baseball's best prospects came through Seattle and became incredibly good players in Seattle. Ken Griffey Jr., Randy Johnson, Alex Rodriguez. Obviously, other guys develop. Edgar Martinez.
Sure.
If you ever go look at Edgar Martinez's stat lines, it's easy to forget how amazing a hitter he was. And I'm a guy, by the way, who I don't have a problem with Edgar being in the Hall. But what I did have a problem with is this idea that because he was the quote-unquote best DH isn't a position. It's the absence of a position.
Oh, you're one of those guys.
Yes, but I will say I don't think that means that he should be judged. No DH should ever be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He should be judged against the best hitters of his time, and he was absolutely one of the best hitters of his time.
Yeah, for sure.
So I still have no problem with him going in. I just always thought that logic was flawed. But there was a guy, the first guy I remember the Mariners really like bringing up that had all of the prospect hype that I could remember. I almost brought it up on the screen, or you would have just seen the home run.
Read the home runs right off. Yeah.
You just go, I'm really wondering what they are. Jose Cruz Jr.
Oh, yeah, Jose Cruz Jr. That was a big deal. Everybody thought he was going to be like the next Ken Griffey Jr. because his dad was also a major leaguer, and he had Jr. in his name, and he was an outfielder, and he was going to solve the Mariners' left field problem. Like Ken Griffey played next to more left fielders than like anybody in history. It seemed like he had a different one every game, and Jose Cruz was going to stabilize the position, and he did not.
He was
involved in what at the time was considered one of the worst trades in Mariners history.
Yes. So he comes up. By the way, also he had the thing going that like Griffey, A-Rod, and him, just like hot dudes, like hot young dudes playing.
The Mariners
baseball.
were just a team of hot young dudes.
Yes, and but also like I'm Oh fuck! I'm getting a call from the. Can I? Jesus, can I take this?
We can just edit that out. Hot young dudes.
Hot young dudes. Yeah, and also these guys. Not only are they hot, but they're like top prospects. Like they're
the Mariners were on that like amazing stretch of just hitting on prospects left and right. And if they weren't hitting on them, they were trading them in good deals.
If they weren't hitting on them, their female fans were.
They had a lot of success with their minor league system in the 90s. So, yeah, everyone thought.
Literally just did the thing I said I wasn't going to do and pulled Jose Cruz.
Oh, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. We're good.
It's very annoying to search for a person who is a junior on your phone because you're like, you have to get all the way into this stupid fucking page before you.
Jose Cruz, man, I remember when the day that trade went down, I was like a 13 or 14-year-old kid, so I never really listened to sports radio at that point because what kind of kid does? But I do remember turning on. I turned on sports radio that day to hear the reaction of that trade because that was the first trade I was like, what in the world are the Mariners doing? And then shortly thereafter, they make that trade that involved Jason Varitek, which ended up being much worse. Jason Varitek and Derek Lowe. That one actually did hurt for a long time. It turned out Cruz for Mike Timlin and Paul Spaljerik didn't actually hurt them that bad because Cruz never became what everyone thought he would.
You know what's funny is Mike Timlin in my mind has just become Mike Tomlin. I just forgot completely that Mike Timlin had a different last name.
They look alike, so you're good there.
Yeah, they're virtual twins.
Okay, how long did Jose Cruz end up playing?
So he played 12 years.
12.
Spent time in Seattle, Toronto, San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Arizona, Boston, with the Dodgers, the Padres, and the Houston Astros, which is surprising to me. I knew he bounced around. That's a lot of teams.
He became like, he was like the hired gun at the end of the end of his career.
9 teams.
Where teams thought he would just come in and be that left-handed bat off the bench that they wanted, and he never could stick. Okay, so 12 years. I played fantasy baseball for his entire career, and I never remember him being much of anything.
Yeah.
So he wasn't hitting the ball too well. He was hitting the ball okay. He was probably like in a good year hitting 15 home runs and averaging probably right around there. I don't know. 10. I'll just say he probably hit 105 home runs.
204 home runs.
Oh, shit.
This is your biggest miss, but
that's my biggest miss. I really underestimated.
Percentage-wise, it's almost 100% miss. That's crazy. So
yeah, I didn't think he would have got that high. I didn't think he was 20 home runs a year.
I keep thinking I'm missing it, and it was actually doubles. So what's interesting about him is he actually got traded. I thought he got traded like after his first year. He got traded halfway through his first year.
Yeah, it was a huge deal, man. The Mariners never even really gave him a chance.
But he also played pretty well in Seattle. 268, 315, 541 is the triple slash line. 12 home runs in half a season.
This is the problem with the 90s that I'm surprised I haven't missed like that on more players because those numbers in the 90s were bad. They weren't good. I mean, again, you look back on it now and you're like, those are great numbers for today's game. But in the 90s, in the steroid era, 268 wasn't going to cut it unless you were hitting 40 bombs a year. You were either hitting 40 bombs and hitting 250 like Jay Buhner, or you had to be like around 300.
But that's a guy, that's a rookie.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's part of the reason why everyone was so pissed about the trade is like this dude actually showed something, but he never really maintained it.
Second place in the Rookie of the Year voting. Can you take a guess who won first place that year?
Was that 97?
I believe it was 97.
First year was 97.
I will be impressed, even though this person...
Nomar Garciaparra.
That's it.
Yeah.
And Nomar Garciaparra, by the way, as a shortstop, 30 home runs.
Yeah.
Led the league in hits, which is amazing.
Nomar was a revelation early in his career.
Yes. Yeah, wow, what a miss. Oh, so he also, by the way, 2001, 2002, I believe, or maybe it was 2000, 2001, 30-plus home runs 2 years in a row, but never makes an All-Star game.
Yeah. No, he just kind of, I mean, and he had no He had no connection to any one team. I think of him as a Blue Jay more than anything, but I definitely remember him playing somewhat of an extended period of time for the Giants, and then no other team really rings a bell.
Sure.
So, yeah, it's just weird. He had no team affiliation, no All-Stars. And against the 90s numbers, man, I mean, they just never measured up.
I know. Now that I don't have to worry about you seeing it, his career wins above replacement higher than I would have thought. 19.6 wins above replacement.
Yeah, he had a pretty nice career. Maybe that trade did hurt us more than I thought.
Well, nobody named Spoljaric is going to be a good player.
I don't know what they were thinking trading their top prospect for 2 relief pitchers. And not like 2 Edwin Diaz's, like 2 pretty average relief pitchers.
Well, that was the time, though. That's what one of the things that A's took advantage of is you could make these trades for like just these generic middle relievers and have them, and get like a couple prospects, like real prospects.
Yeah, I mean,
but also nuts. Prospects meant nothing. Then teams are a lot better at deciding who is a prospect now. Yeah. Why am I having such a hard time getting? I wanted to see his Fangraphs wins per replacement. 19.5, pretty damn good career actually.
Yeah, he didn't. Outside of his very, very last season, he was always positive.
Yeah,
WAR. That's pretty good. All right, I've got one for you. You pulled Lou Gehrig on me last week.
Oh, I fucked up.
But I'm not going to do somebody from the 20s. I'm going to give you another Yankee who many consider to be the greatest baseball player of all time. Not Babe Ruth. Derek Jeter. This is going to be, I feel like this is a tougher one than most people might think because no one remembers any Derek Jeter home runs. You just don't remember Derek Jeter home runs. You remember the defensive plays that were like quote unquote great plays that were actually not that great because anyone should have been able to make them. He just made them look ridiculously good.
Yeah.
But we all know Derek Jeter. He plays 20 years in the major leagues. Plays for a long time, very productive for most of those, mostly stays healthy. He goes to the All-Star game like all but 5 of those years. So 15-time All-Star, first ballot Hall of Famer. Again, not really a home run hitter, but he comes up in the mid-90s, plays until 2014. Yeah, that's all I'm going to give you. You know all that needs to be known about Derek Jeter.
So, Jeter famously also, like, the Yankees were on the verge of an Alex Rodriguez trade, I believe, and before he ended up maybe I'm full of shit. Maybe he was going to play alongside Garcia Parra because that was a deal too, and Garcia Parra would have moved to third. Yeah, anyway,
those three had a weird relationship. Remember that they'd talk about how like they'd all sleep over at each other's houses in the 90s and stuff?
I think they all separately dated Madonna, and Miguel Tejada just gets forgotten because he was like very, very good, but we're like he's not good. Like. And is Miguel Tejada a Hall of Famer? I don't even want to look it up.
No, okay. I'm pretty sure he's not a Hall of Famer.
He probably should be. That's what we'll look that up after.
He could be considered for sure. He might have got popped once.
For steroids?
He might have got popped once.
So there were always... Derek Jeter also had those Ichiro rumors where it was like, well, if he wanted to hit 35 home runs a year, he could, but he chooses to be a contact hitter, which...
That's bullshit.
Yeah,
every time people say that, you're like, come on, man.
I'm going to go the average Derek Jeter year is roughly 15 home runs, and he played so long, and though his defense was probably never great, he played a lot. Like he played, and his bat was always pretty decent. I'm going to say the peak were like low 20s, maybe 25 home runs. I bet you he never hit 30 home runs. Just got to talk through the whole process like one Alex Akita does.
I feel like I expedite the process.
My suspicion is, I think you feel like that because you're the one saying it. My suspicion is that late in his career he dropped. I'm going 275 home runs.
I could tell by the way the process was going that you were going to get a lot closer to this than I anticipated you would, and I was correct because he hit 260 home runs.
Pretty goddamn
So
good.
You're only 15 away. Yeah, you were right. I mean, the most he ever hit in a season was 24 in 1999. He had a lot of seasons around, 10 home runs.
Sure.
Towards the end, he basically wasn't hitting any. So yeah, I mean, you kind of hit it right on the nose. The process works, man.
The process does work. It's also the unfortunate thing about him and Gehrig these are like career stat lines that we are very familiar with. You know what I mean?
We're familiar that we know they were very good players, but we don't really know, like, because again, Jeter, no one even thinks about his home runs.
Sure.
You can see, I can picture his home run swing. It's that weird inside-out swing where the ball scrapes the right field fence as it's going out, and you're like, that shouldn't even count.
Yeah, he had a body that made you think he was going to be a pull hitter.
Yeah, and he just like flicked the ball the other way. He kind of did what Edgar always did, but Edgar made it look better, man. Jeter's swing just looked painful, and you're like, Jeter is 6'3", 195 pounds. That's what he's listed at, and his swing. No one would ever look at Derek Jeter's swing and say, "What a beautiful swing." No.
Am I right? This is much of this has happened in the years that I have had a child, which has become the theme of this. Yeah, Tejada's not in the Hall of Fame. Is A-Rod also not in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, A-Rod. Well, he'll probably never get in.
He'll get in. They got to get rid of everybody was using steroids. I would bet a lot of money that Derek Jeter at some point had a substance that was banned in his system.
If Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez were as close of friends as they both claimed to be,
right,
Jeter was at the very least tempted by steroids.
Sure. Yeah, I'm done caring about steroids. Where do you fall on that? Do you have any opinion?
Yeah, my opinion is bring him back.
4 more years. All right.
More steroids. Let's go.